we collectively are moving beyond fear as the basis for our learning. So we're living in the ship, and we've been underwater this whole time, and the ship is being righted. You know, you don't know you're not in this other reality until it happens. Humanity is at a time of reckoning, and a reckoning is a facing of oneself and all of one's creations. One of the things my guides say is, you can't be the light and hold anybody else in darkness. It's a basic teaching, but I also understand that there's choice. You understand? We're always in choice. We're always agreeing to the kind of reality that we have.
The guides alluded to something coming. Do you feel that's what we're experiencing right now?
I do, yeah. I mean, I do. They said it in a live stream. I don't remember exactly what they said. It was probably a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. And they said, be prepared, massive change. Everything's about to be sort of turned on its head. And I just said, please, God, let me not be in New York City and let me be someplace pretty. That's really what I
God.
Thought,
All right. So for those who don't know the story, what happened?
Oh, I was channeling in Costa Rica. I do an annual, retreat there. And I got there, and about 4 days into the retreat, New York went on lockdown. And it was clear that I wasn't going to go back to New York. And I had a friend who was staying on Maui who found me a tiny house to stay in, and stocked the fridge from Costco. And the next thing I knew, I was on a plane to Maui, where I had never been, to ride out the storm. I figured I'd be in, Hawaii for a few weeks most, and go back. I had just rented like my dream apartment in Manhattan. I actually never spent a night there in the dream apartment. I never went back. I've not been back. I ended up falling in love with this place and finding community, which I'm very grateful for, and now have a house in the rainforest, and I don't even drive, so this is really a leap of faith. I can't get to anything right now, but I'm very happy.
So one last question on this, and it is in a sense your life fell apart, but you allowed and it fell together at a higher octave.
Yeah, it really did. It's what the guides have been talking about. I got out of my own way enough to receive. And stop dictating what the terms of my receiving should be and look like. This is the last place I would have chosen in my monkey mind. I went to Hawaii once years ago on a blind date. I said I would never come back. And, here I am.
Going through the kingdom, am I making things up? Or did I feel a sense of urgency from the guides?
I don't know. I didn't feel the sense of urgency when it was being dictated. It was, this book was dictated all the books are done live in front of audiences. I can't do it by myself. And because I wasn't traveling and having live events, some of them were done in live streams, and I convened a small group on Zoom to be the listeners for the channelings and to ask questions of the guides. I wasn't aware of the urgency, but I expect it was there. And if you picked up on it, it's probably there. I don't really read the books. It's hard. It's hard enough to speak them into being, and then I finally read them when I have to proof the manuscript, because there's no editing. This is just what the guide said. That's what the book is. And then when I do the audiobook is when I really hear it. And I wasn't hearing the urgency in the audiobook, but they've really pretty much said, this is how I understand it. They said, we've been living upside down for so long, we don't even know that we're upside down. They use the image, maybe it's in this book or maybe it was in a recent lecture, of being in a ship that has capsized.
This was the ship.
And yeah, so we're living in the ship. We've been underwater this whole time, and the ship is being righted. You don't know you're not in this other reality until it happens. And I understand that that's what's happening now. And the opportunity for it is there, but this is done through collective choice and also an alignment of the individual will. We have to choose it. When I understand that the collective is chosen, which is what they've been saying, and they were kind of happy about that, They say, sort of the group soul of humanity has decided that they can't go on as they have. So we collectively are moving beyond fear as the basis for our learning and seeking to justify fear, in the ways that we've been instructed to. And they make a real distinction between fear and prudence. Prudence they're in favor of. Prudence says, if you're walking, if you want to go ice skating and there's a sign saying thin ice, probably best not to skate. You don't have to be frightened of the ice, but you don't have to be foolhardy either. Fear is, I'm never going to skate because I might fall through the ice one day. And nobody should skate because somebody one day could fall through the ice.
You will make it through this time. It's challenging, it's tenuous, but you'll make it through.
Yeah.
What is the individual choice, though, that the guides are saying you get to make right now?
I'd have to ask them. I don't recall what they said in the book. I don't know if I can today, but if I channel on your show, I've done it before. The only individual choice they're saying is that I can be here in a new way. I may know myself in a new way without ascribing to the edicts of history. And the choice is made for me by others. The idea of who you are, the idea of who you are, the identity you've held, and the identity you've held individually and collectively is what is being altered through these times, is what is being altered through these times. Upward. The trajectory of humanity is upward, but you do not get to lift unless you encounter creations, unless you encounter your creations. You don't get to bypass, pretend it's all fine. Pretend it's all fine. You get to witness what has been created. You get to witness what has been created as you move beyond it and through it, as you move beyond it and through it. And that is where you sit today. And that is where you sit today, individually and collectively, period. Missing, period.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, guides. How do we encounter our creations while choosing the upper room? And I mean in this situation of not going to a fear-based place where we simply affirm our creations.
Well, let me see if I can answer this. The first thing I want to say is one of the things the guides say is, if you have a body buried in the basement, eventually it's going to stink up the whole house.
Yeah.
And what we're dealing with right now is a process of exhumation, of having to see what we've created in order to be accountable for it. I think the mistake people make is that something gets exhumed and then you want to blame it or hate it or damn it. And the guides say, what you damn damns you back. What you put in darkness or who you put in darkness calls you to that darkness. And so, people use this process in times, I think, to sort of support hatred and support division. And I think the opportunity here is to understand that nothing gets healed until it's brought to the light. Nothing gets re-seen until it is first seen. And the process of rearticulation, which is what the guides are speaking to, is a process of re-knowing the self and re-seeing all things. And re-seeing all things from a higher level of awareness, which actually moves beyond sort of what they would call the template of fear that we've been so, in agreement to. The guides have said, it's kind of like, we're born on this plane and somebody already peed in the pool when we got here. And it's just what we're used to. It's what we expect. So they say, there are other ways to learn your lessons, beyond being fearful or being taught by fear. They say fear is a teacher. It's just not the highest one that you can choose.
You said something interesting. You said needs met as needed as we align to them. What does that mean, as we align to them?
Alignment is vibrational accord. So they say, the New Agers might say, well, you created everything, but I think we're participatory to those creations. We're operating in a collective. So say the water system in a community fails and it's all of a sudden poisonous. I didn't create that, but I'm participatory perhaps to a reality where such things can happen, or an economic structure where people can dump their chemicals in the water because that's what I've been born into. So alignment is the understanding that everything that I see, I am participatory to at a level of consciousness. When I start lifting, what I am participatory to starts to change and the alignments come in a higher way. So it's really kind of that simple. The guides have said, I may get this wrong, what you shake hands with, you hold. And what you hold, you're in accord to, or vibrational accord. That's it. And if you don't like what you're holding, stop holding it. And then you can receive from the higher, And it's some of it's actually probably that simple. So I don't know if I answered this. But the entirety of the teaching seems to be about alignment and what aspect of self is claiming everything. So the guides have said, there's nothing wrong with the house on the hill. Somebody gets to live there, but why do you want it? And if you want it to be the envy of your neighbors, you're creating in fear. And again, the action of fear is to claim more fear. And all you have to do is look at every choice you've made in your life that was fear-based and see what it got you, which in likelihood is more of the same. So a simple way to choose the higher is to not choose in fear, and then to begin to move to a level of reception to what might exist beyond that.
Thank you. Let's go to claims, and I don't know if we want to go to claiming the dominion or claiming the claim, I have come, I have come, I have come.
Yeah.
What can you tell us?
Well, the claim I have come, I have come, I have come is the claim of the upper room. And what they've, in the prior books, there have been attunements. And one of those attunements was, I know who I am in truth, I know what I am in truth, I know how I serve in truth, I am free, I am free, I am free. My understanding of the claim I have come is that it's the chord that is struck when all of those notes are played at once.
Yeah.
And then that is the divine self in expression. The divine self in expression knows who it is, knows what it is, knows how it serves, which is how it expresses, and is free. The claim I am free seems to be the transposition to what they call the upper room. So the guides say when you claim I have come, I have come, I have come, you're actually inducing a process of alchemy. And the claim then is that the divine self or the monad or the Christ within or whatever you want to call it, that divine spark that fires within you begins to then overtake and claim or reclaim every aspect of self that has been in denial of it. And that's the process of acclimation to the higher accord.
What is your take on karma, or their take on karma, and being able to deconstruct to move ahead?
Well, I mean, they say that karma is just simply cause and effect and an opportunity to learn. It's not punishment, and that's a reframing that needs to happen. So anything that we're encountering that is an obstacle in our path becomes the opportunity to learn. And I think sometimes, and I could be wrong, that it's this sort of Western idea that we should get what we want when we want it, and I should be there already. And if something's in my way, it sure better get out of the way so I can be my realized wonderful self, as opposed to understanding that these are the things that we came to learn through and are, in fact, our teachers. So I've heard the guides say, although I hear we're always responsible to our creations. Kind of, if you broke it, you pay for it. It's that kind of a thing. But I also have heard, and I haven't heard a lot about it, it may be in the new book and I'm forgetting it, but the idea that karma as we understand it is somewhat altered in the upper room because we're no longer making choices to confirm the old. We're beginning to choose in a higher accord. So we get a higher out picturing. I know that the things that have challenged me the most in my life, many of them are gone, which is amazing to me. Some things that I thought would always cause me pain or shame or grief. Some of them aren't present. Some of them still stick around, And I understand that those things that still stick around are things I'm still working with. And if I tune into somebody and I become them, I can feel them. And if I feel like I want to jump out the window when I tune into them, it's because I know what that feeling is like. It's in my record. And I can understand it, so I can have the compassion for it. I can recognize it. I can't recognize it if it's an abstract or intellectual idea. So I kind of am of the school that I think that everything that we undergo, and much of it may suck, I would have chosen a very different childhood from myself if I could choose one. But the childhood I got produced the man that I am and am still becoming. And I'm grateful for who I am and who I'm becoming now. But it's at the cost of some of the pain or the scars. It's all supposed to be lovely and pretty all the time is something that I just can't confirm. It's not been my experience. The guides have said, well, there are pills for that if that's what you want, if you want 24/7 comfort. But I do think that the things that we encounter, I can't tell you how many people I read for who say, well, my marriage is standing in the way of my spiritual growth. My husband or my wife doesn't confirm my path. And I think, well, that doesn't need to stand in the way of your spiritual. I mean, if the marriage is not working for you, by all means, you have free will and you can leave the marriage. But to blame somebody else on your lack of progress doesn't make great sense to me. It's like people that say, oh, my job needs to be spiritual. I mean, you and I are in a position right now where our work has to do with our spiritual lives. But when I was teaching college at NYU, which I did for 25 years, that was my spiritual training ground. I loved every minute of it. I learned through that. In every faculty meeting that I had to suffer through, I still learned. Yeah. You understand? So your spiritual life is your life. It's your sex life. It's your professional life. It's your emotional life. It's all part of the same school that we're in. And this is school.
Is this the shift, the moment your guides told you was coming almost since the beginning?
I don't know. I mean, they've been talking about what we're suddenly encountering since the beginning, and certainly that teaching has been escalating in the last few books. I've been thinking about it. In the very first book, I Am the Word, which was dictated in 2009, published in 2010, the guide said humanity is at a time of reckoning, and a reckoning is a facing of oneself and all of one's creations. And then they really went on to say that everything that was created in fear or has been claimed in fear has to be reknown in a higher way. Mm-hmm. And in the more recent books, because I guess there's 7 in print now or something, 3, 6, 7, the 8th is coming out, Realization is the 7th. They really started escalating this teaching about the collective and what the collective is undergoing. And they've been talking about the collective undergoing a re-seeing of all of our structures, social structures, political structures, religious structures, economic structures. In the Book of Truth, which was dictated right before the last election, the last presidential election, they really got into it. And I was very surprised because what I began to understand was what this teaching, which I had initially thought was about the realization of the individual, was really about the realization of the collective, and that the individual's realization or awareness of his or her own innate divinity is actually part of a much larger collective act. Yeah. And the collective act that they teach has always been sort of spoken of as not a terrifically graceful process. I mean, they've talked about it as a tidal wave, washing away the old. I mean, it's not gloom and doom. There's no Armageddon in these teachings, thank God. I don't think I could bring them through if they did. But they've been bracing us for a while, embracing me. And, I don't remember a lot of the dictations. I'm a channel. I don't write these books. I just take the dictation. And I remember, all of these live streams where I would say things like, this sounds really scary. And they would say, well, no, it's not. It really isn't that. It's something other. And it really is about how you attend to the one beside you and the reality at hand. I think we're all being given this astonishing opportunity to come into the present moment and see who we really are and who everybody else really is and what this means. I think the masks are off. The guides have been saying that for a while. So I'm just going on. My head's been full about this stuff because I've been channeling for so long. And I don't always, sit there and interpret it. My job is really to be the radio for it. But my life is certainly, up in the air, as is everybody else's, right now. And it's a challenging time, no question.
Are we collectively wishing a new world into existence, or are we collectively wishing, because we are all drawn like bees to honey right now? Or are we collectively agreeing to a temporary, I'll put in quotes, nightmare?
I have no idea. It's a really interesting question. But I hear from the guides both are true. And it does depend on how you want to interpret it. How do you want to see a dream? How do you want to see a dream? There is benefit in a nightmare. There is benefit in a nightmare. You release the things you were frightened of. You release the things you were frightened of in your dream state, and then convene again, and then convene again with the release in place, with the release in place. The true self you see. This is the guides, by the way. They're saying the true self you see, who knows who he is, is unafraid, is unafraid. And the alignment to the true self and the alignment to the true self in most ways requires an individual or culture or species or a culture or a species to move through the shadow, to reintegrate the truth, that has always been there but been denied, been denied. We have said many times the denial of God, the denial of the divine, its only true problem humanity faces, is the only true problem humanity faces. He interrupts as the virus, the denial of the divine, is the virus, the denial of the divine. The virus is a symbol in some ways. The virus is a symbol in some ways, and a reality in others, and a reality in others. How you attend to a symbol, will transform your understanding, That also does not mean you don't attend to what is real. You don't attend to what is real. You don't see what is there. You don't see what is there. You don't heal what can be healed. You don't heal what can be healed and sing. And other words, sing the song of healing for those who require it. Whatever that means. I wasn't planning on channeling. I'm on my first cup of coffee, and I'm on a wacko time change for me.
and I wasn't planning on it either. So thank you to the guides, and my guess is they're going to be coming back more as I have more questions about everything that they were saying. So let's take it piece by piece is what they said, and we'll see where we end up going. They said to get in alignment through your true self, you have to move through the shadow. How do we move through the shadow without getting stuck at this point in the dark?
Understand that the divine is the only truth. Well, they're saying understand that the divine is the only truth, period. Say this again. So they've been saying this for some time, and it's challenging for me because the words come out of my mouth and I'm not the guides and I want to contest them and fight them and disagree with them all the time. But they've been saying for some time that the denial of the divine is the only real problem we face. And that, what you put in darkness calls you to the darkness. It's really very simple. And fear, in all ways, they say, is the denial of the divine. The action of fear is to claim more fear. And they've also said that one of the great fears that we all have, and finally the only one that we're really attending to in many ways, is the fear of death. Who are we and what are we if we're not what we think? So how do we all move through this? I don't know. I mean, your question was, what do we do when we get stuck in the darkness?
How do we move through the shadow, as they're saying, without getting stuck in the darkness? Because right now I see a positive change possible, but I also see us getting sucked in.
Absolutely. Answer this. This thing, we will answer this. The true self that you are. The true self that you are is unafraid. If you align to the true self that you are. If you align to the true self that you are, lift to what we call the upper room, which is a higher vibrational state, where fear does not express. You attend to what is before you. You attend to what is before you. You're not ignoring pain. You are not ignoring pain. You are pretending to be in bliss. You are not pretending to be in bliss. You are actually who you are. You are factually who you are, but operating in a higher way, From the higher perspective you sit at. From the higher perspective you sit at, you may lift who you encounter. You may lift who you encounter and what you encounter to the upper room where indeed it may be made new, where indeed it may be made new. Now this is applicable. Applicable in any situation, The truth of who you are. The truth of who you are, which is the divine self, sees and perceives the divine, sees and perceives the divine in all that he encounters, to render something outside of God, This cannot be of God. This cannot be of God is to put it in darkness, What you put in darkness, calls you to that level of vibration, That is vibrational accord. That is vibrational accord. To lift something to the upper room, is to re-see it as of God, or to re-know the self and with it, or to re-know the self as with it at that level, He interrupts. They're saying he interrupts because I'm interrupting. I just want to know, how do we not get stuck if that's what we're asking? The answer is very simple. The answer is very simple. Know who you are. Know who you are. The aspect of you that is stuck. The aspect of you that is stuck is the aspect that wants certainty, is the aspect that wants certainty, that wants the solution that he wants, that wants the solution that he wants, that wants the outcome that says it should be, that wants the outcome that he says it should be. That is not how this works. That is not how this works. Uncertainty in this way. Uncertainty at this way is ripe for possibility, is ripe for possibility, and ripe for reunion, and ripe for reunion. If you got everything you wanted all the time, if you got everything you wanted all the time, if you decided everything is what it should be, if you've decided everything is what it should be, you would sit very patiently. You would sit very patiently and get everything you think you should have, and get everything you think you should have, and not bother with source, and not bother with source. Understanding source, the act of the divine. The act of the divine is present in all things, as present in all things, moves you into union, moves you into union. The storm, the shadow, the challenge, all may be seen as of God, all may be seen as of God, and hence renown, period.
There is a statement, a claim, a something that we can say or share or repeat that helps us to get to this upper room. I know who I am in truth. I know what I am in truth. I know how I serve in truth. I am free. I am free. I am free.
Correct. Yeah, they're saying correct. I mean, I'll explain this, and I know that I just dove in and started channeling on this thing, and I certainly wasn't expecting to. So if people are even still listening, I'll finish the explanation.
With our audience, they are listening more than you could ever imagine right now.
Okay. All right. So the guides work with attunements, and they say, we're all radios, and we're always in broadcast, and our broadcast is our consciousness and our expression. That's it. And all they're doing with these attunements is tuning the radios that we are to play the higher stations that they say have always been there, but we've been ignoring or refuting or denying. It's really that simple. So what they do is they say that the claims of truth are energetic attunements, and really through the invocation of them, you align the frequency. I mean, when I do this in workshops and groups, I mean, we can all feel it. You can all feel the energy shift. You can do it with others. I know who you are in truth. I know what you are in truth. I know how you serve in truth, because what is true is always true. You're not making somebody something that they're not. You're claiming who they truly are. And again, you can feel, in most cases, the energy expand and lift. So this seems to be the way to support a higher alignment in a practical way. Now, there are certain things that I always have to remember, and I've been, I'm a New Yorker. I'm deeply troubled and concerned. I have so many friends there. My dog is there. I'm not there right now, and I hope to go back soon. But the action of fear is to claim more fear. And they say, look at every choice you make in fear and see what you get, and you're going to get more of the same. And from this perspective that they're teaching, it's really interesting. If you do these attunements and then you go, I am in the upper room, and then you ask yourself what you're afraid of, you're probably going to find that there's nothing there because you've lifted beyond it. You're not ignoring something. If there's a python in the living room, you're not going to want to go pick it up. You understand it, but you're not operating in fear in the way that perhaps we've been so conditioned to.
What are the big lessons, if you can recall, that you're getting that now make such sense?
Well, I mean, a lot of what they were talking about in that book was the transition that one undergoes individually and collectively between the octaves of expression or between the levels of vibration. And they talk about it this way. I mean, they say, you're given a new apartment on the 10th floor and you're used to living in the basement. The view from the basement, and you've collected all your stuff. It's in the basement. And now you go up to the 10th floor and you go, wow, this is wonderful. There's so much light. There's a different view, but where's all my stuff? And then we go back down to what we've had because it's the known. So the process of sort of divesting ourselves of who we think we are, because they say who we think we are primarily is just an idea that we've given tremendous credence to. That process and the process of what we think it means to be ourselves. Who am I without my job? Who am I without my health? Who am I, without my partner? or my bank account or my religion. Who am I without these things? That's the process of the guides say we undergo as we lift in vibration. We don't get to bring the garbage from the basement up to the 10th floor apartment.
Mm-hmm.
We have to let it go. So the collective, I understand, is having to do this as well. When they talk about alchemy in this book, they're talking about bringing us to a level of vibration where one is able to claim, and they've just started teaching this maybe 3 months ago in workshops, and I'm assuming it's what the next book is going to be about. They're working with the claim, "Behold, I make all things new," which is astonishing when you work with it. You go to this level, what they call the upper room, and then you make the claim, and you literally can feel the energy rolling out in waves from the field. I mean, it's unlike anything I've ever really experienced. But what they're saying is you're really translating, you become what's the word? You become the one who transposes vibration. You lift it from one key to the higher by nature of the resonant field. And that's the act of alchemy. It's not about loaves into fishes. It is about the realization that everything in form, everything that we know of as form, is one source in vibration.
You were doing an attunement exercise with each individual,
Mm-hmm.
and your eyes were a completely different color than they are now. And I did a double and a triple take, and it's real.
Yeah. I mean, I only know the reports, and I often ask what color were my eyes because I'm curious. And not everybody sees it, but they tend to run a very pale blue when there's that level of merging. But I was just going to say, when I'm in that level of expansion and expression as the guides, first of all, there is no fear. I'm not operating from fear. There's a deep, deep compassion that I experience. Everybody looks just gorgeous, just beautiful, just as they are from this place. And that's not how I'm wandering around in Manhattan. And I wish it were. And I know that I've been given the tools to be able to do that should I avail myself of it. And I do. And when I do, I have that experience as I wish. Like many of us, I think I'm still somewhat invested in what I want to be and who I think I should be and how the world reflects that. And that, as my guides would say, is my small self sort of doing its thing at the cost of what may be known at the higher level. So yes, I do experience that expansion. And I have to say, I mean, to compare my life now to what it was even 10 years ago would be fairly impossible for me. My road in some ways hasn't been, unicorns and rainbows. It's been challenging in many ways. And every time I seem to move forward in my work, I have to confront another level of my stuff that I get to move through. And my stuff means just the stuff that I've invested in or who I think I am, that is not who I am. And so that's been my path. And perhaps that's just how I'm choosing to experience it or just what I've agreed to. But it's deeply transformational. It's not always as easy as I would prefer it to be. But, my guides have said about the work that comes through me, this is not convenient work. It's not convenient to the small self or to the ego. It really isn't at all. And those are the things that I bump up against as I grow.
You've been given a lot of tools, and you use the word, I could walk around Manhattan if I avail myself.
Well, by avail, I mean align myself. And that means that I become willing to allow myself to be who I truly am and not who I think I am. And the guides say the small self thinks and the divine self or the true self knows. And I know this because I do it. I know what that's like. So, when I say avail, I think I mean align. And to be in alignment, the guide says to be in energetic accord or energetic agreement with this other level of consciousness or vibration, as they call it. And it's available, But if I want to do that, I have to let go of my stuff. I have to let go of what you think of me, how I'm seen in the world, every grudge I have. I mean, it's not convenient. So if I want to do that work, it's fine. I mean, if I want to feel that stuff without doing the work, I could probably take a pill, but that's a very different thing.
Mhm.
So, the divine self, as I understand it, the true self is not afraid, doesn't hold a grudge, doesn't care what anybody thinks. And if I want to be at that level, that's the work that has to happen. So one of the things my guides say is, you can't be the light and hold anybody else in darkness. It's a basic teaching. And they say that's the hypocrisy of all religions, is that they do that. We've got it, you don't. We're here, you're there, and that's it. Which they say is just absolutely ridiculous. But if I want this, I have to be willing to do that, which essentially means agree to release the people that I'm holding in the dark,
Mhm.
or those aspects of myself, that I'm condemning. I mean, I used to say, when people said, how has your life changed doing this work? I had lost 130 pounds, and I went, well, that was a big change, but I put a bunch of it back in the last couple of years. So now I'm angry at that part of myself. And I totally understand kind of why I did it. But I also understand that there's choice. Do you understand? We're always in choice. We're always agreeing to the kind of reality that we have.
Let's talk about lies and fears, because I think this falls right in line with what we're talking about.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the guides say, well, they talk a lot about this. In the Book of Truth, there's a whole teaching on truth at the cost of what we believed.
Mm-hmm.
So the guides say there is not a lie that's been told that has not been told in fear. Every lie ever told was told in fear. Every action we take in fear, they say, gets us more fear. And they just say, look at your own lives. Look at the last choice you made because you were afraid and see what it got you. Probably it got you more fear. Now, I think that there's a difference. People say, well, what if there's a bear and I'm running from the bear? That's self-preservation. I don't know if that's fear. The bear isn't evil. You're not, you're working to save yourself, which is self-preservation. So I don't know. That's my postscript, and I probably got it wrong, and they're just saying so got it wrong. So when they talk about truth, they talk about truth as a vibration that is present, that can be operated in and through. Mm-hmm. And that in the vibration of truth, they say a lie cannot be held. So when you begin working at this level, those agreements that you made in fear, either on a personal level or in the collective level, have to come up for release, because they can't exist in the higher plane. Now, we've been taught to believe all this crap, and so we continue to invest in it. But when you begin working in this way, my understanding is you can't align to it anymore, which means your relationship to it is going to have to be seen and moved.
Thank you. So maybe this is where we get to dive in. How do we begin working at this level?
Well, I'm going to let the guides do this, and they're really probably who you should be interviewing on the teachings. I can interpret, and they do a better job than I do when you claim the truth. When you claim the truth as to what you are, as who and what you are, this is claimed by the true self, and this is claimed by the true self, not the false structure of his personality, not the false structure you know of as personality. You align to it. You align to it, but in this alignment, you go through a process. You go through a process of realization. Realization means knowing. Realization means knowing, and knowing truth. And knowing truth, knowing who and what you are in truth, knowing who and what you are in truth comes at a great cost, And that means everything you believe yourself to be. And that means everything you believed yourself to be that is not in accord to truth, I think of a chord, and think of a chord as a chord of music, in resonance. If it's not resonant with that, everything that is not in resonance with that will need to be moved, or moved moved away, or claimed in a higher way, or claimed in a higher way to be reknown, to be reknown. So the process is alchemization, for lack of a better word, which is a reinvention, or reknowing, or a reknowing of the being that you are, outside of self-identity, outside of what's been claimed for you in history, period, period, period. And they're saying period, period, period.
Either it's the God within or Christ consciousness, or what does it mean to know who I am in truth?
Well, let me try this first, and I'm going to go to them. We want to take it. They're saying, no, we want to take it. I'm going to go to bed. I'm going to let this whole, you can just take them for the whole.
Thanks, Paul.
They're saying, we want you to know this, the who that speaks these words. The who that speaks these words is the true self, or the aspect of the creator, or the aspect of the creator that has come as you, that seeks realization, as itself, the divine as you, the spark of God, if you wish, the indwelling Christ, if you wish, the monad, if you wish, Holy Spirit, if you wish, whatever name you want to offer, that will serve the purpose of comprehension, the action of the creator as you, the action of the creator as you, the divine as its expression, or field and form, in your field and form. I know who I am. As the aspect of the creator, as the aspect of the creator, in form as what I am, in form as what I am, and the what that you are, is in manifestation, period.
Let's look at what I am in truth.
They're saying the what in form and field. Now the identity you hold. The identity you hold as a man, perhaps claims inheritance. I know what a man is. I know what a man is because I know what I was told a man is, because I know what I was told a man is, and the codification of form. And the codification of form as a man becomes part of your comprehension, experience in this world. Now, when you realize the divinity, realize means know, and understand, realize means know of what you are, you move beyond codification, you move beyond the codification of it for you, that's been claimed for you throughout history, to what you truly are, which is the divine in manifestation, Every cell of your being can only be this, period, 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 period.
From there, the last one. What does it mean to know how we serve in truth?
True. In truth means always true. It is not the convenience that you like. I am a nurse. I am a nurse is how you are expressing. I know how I serve in truth. Simply means that the divine as you, is in its perfect expression, and is always true, and is always true. Now this simply means that you are as you are, in form and field, and your work, which is your expression, is what it needs to be, to be in vibrational accord with this, If you understand the manifestation of God, that the manifestation of God in form as you, knows exactly what it needs to do, to be expressed fully, You will understand this teaching. If you think it's a small self gets a job, if you think it means that the small self gets a new job description, you'll be confused. You will be confused, period.
I've watched an evolution in each one of the books, an evolution in the message.
Yeah.
Where are we going, and why is this so important today?
Well, all I know I'm going to let them take this in a second because I actually want to hear what they have to say because I don't know. I mean, I think it's been articulated in all the books. Yes. And they're saying, say this. Yeah, so I'll say this. In the very first book, I Am the Word, they call they use the term Christ, and they define it perhaps differently than most of us have been led to understand it. And they say that the Christ is the aspect of the Creator that can be realized in material form as who and what we are. That's the truth of our being. And they said in that first book that the Christ in humanity, our man, I think they said in that book, is an event that happens. And I always thought this was sort of theoretical. Like I get it, we're all holy, I get it. Yeah, that means, we're nice to each other and, namaste this, namaste that, whatever. I understood the ease in principle of the teaching. What I didn't get at the time is they're really talking manifestation. They're really talking about the being of this, and they're actually talking about a whole shift in the species. They say that we're really at a juncture as a species.
Dismantling of structure. It's interesting. Yeah. It says, do not be distracted by this. But I want to know what they mean both by dismantling of structure and how do we not be distracted by all of this?
I don't know. Again, the book was channeled a year ago, before much of what's creating, all this mayhem was present, but there was a fair amount then. The book is talking about the dismantling of structures, I think, in a couple of different ways. The primary one is at the level of personhood, who we think we are in relation to the ideas we've held about who we should be and what we've inherited through what they would say, I guess, is a template of history, the expectations that we're born into by being on what they call this octave or this level of vibrational expression that we're all sharing, what it means to be a man, what a government is, what an economic system is, these things that we enter into and are here and present. So they've been talking about the dismantling of these things in some ways for the last 3 or 4 books. Yeah. And here in Alchemy, they're really talking about the challenges we face when we're lifting from one level of vibration or coherence, which they say then supports the reality we experience, to the higher. And you can't go to the higher without dismantling the things that have been tied to the lower.
Yes.
So the personality self is undergoing this. I went through this in a radical and not very pleasant way while the dictation of this was happening, I have to say. And we're seeing it outpictured around us as well. The guide said in, I Am the Word, the very first book that was channeled now 11 years ago, they said humanity is a time of reckoning. A reckoning is a facing of the self and all of one's creations, and that what has been created in fear needs to be reknown, reseen in a higher way. And that, I think, is what we're going through. But they're also talking now, the guides, about, when a seed breaks through the earth is moved. It's not necessarily a graceful process. And when the new is seeking to be born, seeking to be revealed, the old is caught, is shifted, is challenged, and in some cases released. So I understand that these are the times that we're in now, and the guides have, they say this so consistently, this must be seen as opportunity. I don't know how we make it comfortable, I don't know that it's comfortable because it's the known. And we're releasing a way of being, with ourselves, who we think we are, what we think we should be. And, everybody else is doing it at the same time. It's kind of wild to look around and see this. But they do talk about it being productive. Productive, they say, is not necessarily comfortable, but always useful. And I hear in this case, it's really necessary. It's an opportunity if we look at it as such.
When a culture moves beyond its small self, when a country moves beyond its small self, when a civilization moves beyond its small self, there is chaos because the aspects of self that seek to cling to the old will do their damnedest to maintain the old when the new is seeking to be born.
Yeah. That's it in a nutshell. They said it well. It's exactly where we're at. although when they said it, I understood it more theoretically than practically. And now it's like, okay, this is what it looks like. I kind of get it. And I also hear that this process is really just beginning. It's an ongoing process of reclamation. And it's a reclamation, they say, of the divine. They say our only real problem is the denial of the divine. If we can work with that one, everything else will sort of fix itself in quite a wonderful way. But no, I don't think that this is easy, nor do I think it's what the small self would choose. The guides have said things like, you can only fix the roof for so long. Sometimes the house needs to come down and a new one needs to be built. And they've often said, their work isn't about fixing things. It's about, it's the teaching, behold, I make all things new. That's really what they're teaching. And how things are made new is what they're channeling about now in these current days.
Thank you. I'm wondering if you have conversations with the guides yourself, because there were a few little bombs in what you just said. First off, and I'm getting it myself in my own channeled writing, just beginning.
Yeah, just beginning. That this is an ongoing process. So I don't know that things go back to the way they were. There was a tremendous amount wrong with the way things were. I mean, wrong is my word, not the guides. They don't speak in terms of right and wrong. But, they've said it. They said it a few years ago in an interview, and it surprised me. But what we're doing now is we're seeing the blanket pulled back from the bed, and all the vermin that's been in the bed is being exposed to the light. We're having to see what we've been tolerating, what we've been party to or complicit with. You see, in the New Age, people like to say, well, you create this. And the guides say, yes, you're responsible for your own creations, but you're in accord, which means vibrational accord, with everything you see around you. The consciousness that you hold is informing matter. And everything you see around you, be it war, be it injustice, you are in vibrational accord with, which means your consciousness can transform it. And a lot of, I suspect, what we're having to look at now are the things that we have been in agreement to. And by that, I mean vibrational accord, not conscious, intentional agreement, that needs to be moved or needs to be lifted to a higher way.
There's a term that I use. I call myself an alchemist, meaning to change energy. And there's a term I use to Tai Chi, which is Tai Chiing. Taking in something could be quote unquote negative. There really is no such thing, but taking in that energy and transmuting it into something else. What are they talking about by alchemy?
I believe they're talking about the realization of spirit in matter, that God is all things, and the realization of God in all things, be it, the rock or the tree or the human being across the street, the realization of the inherent divine reclaims the inherent divine that has always been there and been denied. And consequently, you're lifting the vibration of what you encounter. And if you're doing this from what they call the upper room, you're aligned to a level where fear isn't really operative. You've moved beyond that. And you're reclaiming things beyond what they've been known as or called or thought to be. You're actually releasing the meaning things have been endowed with to reclaim the true essence of all things. So, it's an old line in 12-step literature, and I'm sure it's probably in every mystical teaching out there in any, religious doctrine. But this idea that God is all things or God is nothing, you really don't get to choose. So God is the rock, God is the tree, God is the man across the street that normally you don't want to talk to, It's still of source. It doesn't mean you have to like them. It doesn't mean you have to agree with them. But how things have been known, they say, and how they've been claimed through historical data. And they say the small self only knows itself through historical data. How they've been claimed in the past has weighted them with meaning. So the guides, for example, say, every time you walk into a bank, the fingerprints of everybody who's ever been to a bank since the beginning of the very first inception of the idea of banking is present. The idea of bank as institution is heavily weighted through legacy. the idea of re-knowing things that we thought would always be there, or the dismantling of the old to perhaps create a new system or a higher way of operating, is, I believe, what we're being called to. How that looks, I don't know. I don't know if they've talked about it yet.
Yeah.
I don't think they have, actually.
I'll look forward to it. And for everybody listening, that screaming bird, you are on Maui right now. And that bird certainly has something that he or she wishes to share. We just don't have our bird translator on maybe at the moment.
Well, yeah, it's kind of like channeling, you know. There you go.
So the guides have talked about in many books how to get to the upper room. It looks like that has changed a bit, or is more specific and more nuanced in alchemy. What can you share about this?
The teaching of the upper room was first introduced in the last book, which is Realization. The book that preceded it, Freedom, the Book of Freedom, ended with an invitation from the guides for the reader to step over a threshold. Mm-hmm. And at the time, I didn't know what they were talking about, but I got to go too. They made this little point of saying, Paul, you get to come too. And up until that point, they said, my job had been to hold the door. Mm-hmm. And now I think that the door have been the books. My job had been to deliver the books, which is being the doorway for them to do this work. So they left the reader, they left the students, because those books were all channeled in front of audiences. All of them are now. And then when they picked up for the next book, they brought everybody to what they call the upper room, which is a higher level of consciousness. The guides say the attunements that are already present in the texts are what will call you there. But there are certain claims. And the claims are, I know who I am in truth. I know what I am in truth. I know how I serve in truth. They say that's all claimed by the true self, the divine self. It's not the personality self seeking to divinize or make itself important. The divine, as you, knows who it is, what it is, and how it expresses. And then there's the claim, I am in the upper room. And then there's the claim, I am free, I am free, I am free, which is the release of the old, the release of the attachment to doctrine and what should be. Again, these aren't things parroted. They're really energetic attunements. You can often feel them when I do this in groups. It's usually extraordinarily palpable. And then there's the claim, I am in the upper room. Now, the claim itself will carry you there. And it's often, again, palpable. You can feel your whole energetic field just shifting upwards. And the books take you there. But I don't know if it's more nuanced. I think what they've explained, which I really didn't know until they did, for years they've been talking about being in a chord, and they would always say A-C-C-O-R-D or A-C-H-O-R-D is on a piano. And I was always, well, that's a nice witty, thing for them to say. I suppose it makes sense in some way. But I didn't understand what they were really getting at until they unpacked it. And they're saying that each of these notes, these claims, I know who I am in truth, I know what I am in truth, I know how I serve in truth, I am free, I am free, I am free, are as notes played. When those claims are integrated and invoked in completeness, that's the manifestation of the divine self in the upper room. And that's the claim that they work with in the last two books, which is the claim, I have come, I have come, I have come, which is the manifestation of the monad or the divine self or the Christ within, whatever you want to call it, the eternal self. It really doesn't matter, in expression as in through you. So that's my understanding. For people that aren't familiar with the work, it might be helpful for them to just understand that the guides say we're operating in an octave right here. The reality that we share is a compilation of, it's all in tone, high, low, and in between. And everything that we see and experience in a collective way is in relation and of that octave. What the upper room is, they say it's the octave that expresses above us. Mm-hmm. And they say any song can be sung in any octave into infinity. Just because the ears don't hear it doesn't mean that the song can't be played there. And your resonant self, body, mind, spirit, your expression, how you've shown up, is what is being transposed to the higher octave. What your tone is in the higher octave through this thing they call entrainment, is in accord, vibrational accord to everything around you. So consequently, when you're singing or toning or vibrating at that high level, by nature of your being, you're lifting what you encounter to you. I think that's the best way to try to explain it.
You have sung in a collective agreement. So I'm wondering how we sing in a new collective agreement.
Well, I know what they've been speaking of recently, which has been interesting. They've said humanity has decided to progress, that the collective of all of us have decided to move forward in a positive way. And that what we're dealing with now are the ramifications of those choices, which are challenging because we fight these things. But let me ask what they mean. We would say it very differently. They're saying we would see it very differently. So we will explain it to you. So we will explain it to you. The collective as an identity. The collective as an identity has known itself in old ways, has known itself in old ways. You've been born into something. You've been born into separation, or the idea of separation, or the idea of separation. You've acclimated to it. You have acclimated to it. You believe it to be true. You believe it to be true. It is simply an idea. It is simply an idea so entrenched, so previously agreed upon, so previously agreed upon that you expect it to be there, that you expect it to be there. In fact, you are not separate. In fact, you are not separate. You could never be. You could never be. We don't deny your experience of origin. We don't deny your experience of separation. We'll offer you this, but we will offer you this when you are lifted as a collective, those things that you have damned, those things that you have damned, other words, shown in darkness, shown in darkness, claimed in darkness, will be claimed in the upper room, at the cost of the old, the claiming of the new, the true identity of the collective, the true identity of the collective. You're all divine beings. You are all divine beings, even when you deny it. Even when you deny it, comes at the cost of the old. Comes at the cost of the old. The old is what you're seeing now, and the old is what you're seeing now. Place before you, asking to be reseen, or reknown in higher accord, period. In their same period.
Automatic writing is perhaps the most cutting-edge tool for connecting with the other side, which is why we've written the definitive guide called the Automatic Writing Experience. To find out more, simply visit automaticwriting.com. It's my favorite way to help you to shine bright. Woohoo!